Let's get comfortable with the uncomfortable. Today with Jenny Hutt on the Prenup Podcast.
All right, we are back with another episode of the Prenup Podcast. And today I have the wonderful and incredible Jenny Hutt. So Jenny.
Wonderful and incredible.
I was introduced to Jenny by the amazing Vanessa Rossetto, who is the founder of Kalina Health, but also just a badass. She has become a very good friend of mine in the past year. We did this thing called Hoffman Method together, which was amazing. And
in San Francisco, right?
We did it in Connecticut, but a lot of people do it on the West Coast.
I didn't know they had one in Connecticut.
Because so many people have wanted it post-COVID. So they opened one on the East Coast, and I am a big proponent and advocate of it.
I wish I could go there with like a sponsorship. I don't have the dough right now to do it. Some of that.
Vanessa and I might have to put you up for a scholarship for it because it's one of the best things we've ever done. And of course, without her, I probably would never have even gotten to you and been able to meet you and learn about you. So,
well, thank you for being interested and for having me on your podcast.
So tell us a little bit more about yourself and kind of how you got into family law.
So I got into family law. Well, I was a lawyer for many years. I got licensed like 26 years ago, and I've done a bunch of different things in my career. I was a broadcaster for many years on SiriusXM. I had a couple radio shows. I had a few television shows. I was on other television shows as well. And then I launched an eyewear company, and I wrote a book in there, but I found myself wanting to get back into the law a few years ago when I started having problems in my own marriage, and I got separated after being married for 26 or 27 years. Still just separated. I don't know yet whether or not we'll decide to divorce, but I realized that I wanted to help people through this process because it's a tough process and it's scary and it's overwhelming and there are so many emotions that come up. And I think that now I'm so well suited for it because I know exactly what it feels like to have your life sort of turned upside down and the myriad of emotions that come with it, some that have to do with the marriage ending and some that have to do with your identity and just sort of the shift in one's life. And it's strange, but I love being able to help people. And I found that it's what I'm really good at and it feels like my purpose. So I'm thrilled. I mean, I still podcast. I've listened to it in advance of this. Yeah, but this is by far sort of my happiest period, I think, is helping people.
So when you were at law school, did you study family law?
Of course, yeah. I mean, that's one of the sort of requirements in law school. It's different from, I think, like in medical school, there's a specialty. You go into something within medical school, you go to your residencies and then your fellowships, and then you sort of figure out your pathway and everything you do is kind of geared toward it, I think. But in law school, you're just kind of, at least when I went in the late 90s, we were just given classes you had to take. So first year, there were the requirements. And then I guess you could sort of pick and choose. But unless I don't know, everybody seemed to take all different things.
Yeah, what popped up to you then in that back, like when you were doing law school? What were you like, okay, this is why I want to study family law?
So at the time, I definitely thought criminal law was interesting because criminal law seemed scary and salacious in a way because you think it's like a TV show. You think everything's like a TV show when you're in your 20s for sure. And can you hang on? Can you pause this for 1 second?
Yeah.
I actually have a client calling me, so I'm going to mute this.
Right.
Okay, you can leave that in. By the way, please leave that in because one of the reasons why today in present day I knew that this was the right area of law for me to be in is that I have, for better or for worse, really no boundaries when it comes to my work life. And so my clients know they can always reach me because I understand how dire it feels. I understand how dire it feels when you want an answer, when something goes awry, when there's an issue with a kid or an issue with your spouse and the marriage is being dissolved and there's things that come up and it feels like everything is a crisis. That feeling is real. And I want to be as available as I possibly can to everyone to say, like, it's okay. This does feel this way, but here's how we're going to navigate it. And it's always better to go to your lawyer anyway, before doing something impulsive, because it's the impulsive decisions and the emotional decisions that cause the whole process to be dragged out. And nobody wants that. I mean, I come from a school of, I'd rather settle your case and get you as close as we can to the outcome you want. But everyone has to compromise a little bit. There's just no way around it. And any lawyer that tells you when you walk in, oh, I'm going to get you everything, the house, the boat, the kids, the freaking lifetime, whatever, because your spouse was a jerk. Like, it's just not reality. And especially in New York, which is a no-fault state. But back to your initial question. So criminal law fascinated me. But then it also terrified me in the sense that I didn't know if I'd be on the side of the defense or the prosecution. And also at the time, I didn't really know that I wanted to practice law. And while family law was interesting, I didn't really know enough about it to know as much as it entails the way I do now and the way that life has kind of brought me here.
Do you think that by navigating your own marriage and kind of looking at, I think what's so interesting to me, especially in the space of prenups, the space of trust, estates, divorce, all of this in family law, is there's what's legal and then there's what people think is fair, right?
Oh,
and
yeah. Well, yeah. There's nothing's fair anywhere anyway. But so the other part of this is that when I lost my mom, I lost her in 2008. So you do the math because I can't, I'm bad at math. And it's 17 years maybe, I think. Yeah, 17. And I lost my dad in the Black Friday of 2022, so almost 3 years ago, the day after Thanksgiving. So it was the 25th of November. And my dad's estate was a complete show. And that my sister and I still have been dealing with. My brother was like, you two handle it. And we're like, great. So we do.
Thanks for leaving us.
Thanks, Brian. No, he was great about it. It was really almost simpler to just have the two of us deal with it. But watching how messy that was, like initially I was like, oh, maybe estate planning is something I would want to do because I knew I was going to get back into practicing law. But then this sort of felt right because I think it's the area of law that has the most sort of human dynamic and human interaction, and a place where compassion is really important and empathy. And if your skill set involves your emotional IQ or your ability to, I guess, really hear what people are going through, sense it and feel it, I think this is the best area of law. It's the least bookish, if you will. And what you just said is spot on. I mean, the law is the law. And I had to say most of the cases that end up in courtrooms when it comes to divorces, it should never end up in courtrooms. And they do because of emotion. And they do because people are angry. And I'm really good with anger. Like, a lot of it, I see it and I understand it. And I feel for these people who have either actually been wronged, but the law doesn't really, I don't know if you curse on your podcast, but like,
yes.
The law doesn't really give a who to. Like they don't, it doesn't care in New York. So we care and they care, but the law doesn't care. So I'm able to distill down what's the real issue at heart. Is it that you're hurt or that you're worried about your kids? Is it that you're hurt or you're really not getting the equitable distribution that you should be getting? Mm-hmm. So it's figuring that out, and I can do that. And I also do really care. I mean, this part, and it feels good to help people. So that's really, does.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the other thing that's been so interesting. I've watched a lot of friends recently go through divorces, we're mid-30s, early 40s, and it's starting to happen, right? A few years ago, it was like every summer there was a wedding, and now it's these first round of divorces. Mm-hmm. And I think what's really interesting to me is, my parents' divorce, was 30 some years ago now. And 6 years later, both filed for bankruptcy because their lawyer bills were just so insane and they couldn't come to an agreement. And no one was winning. And
that's right.
No one wanted that case. Like everyone suffered. And what's so interesting to me is that the laws really haven't changed in 30 years.
Right.
But I'm hoping that people's opinions will start to change of how they approach divorce and that it's not the end of the world. And wouldn't you want to get out of something easily or easily-ish, as easy as you can?
Yeah, I mean, I would hope so. I mean, I think that's the other thing I've heard everybody hates their divorce lawyer. Everyone hates divorce lawyers, like as a rule. It's the trope, right? And so I was hell-bent on not being the hated divorce lawyer, because you can do this without being loathsome. You could do this without taking advantage of your client. Like I'm really transparent with clients who call me and want to just talk to me because they think I'm a therapist. And I'm like, I'm not a therapist. I'm your lawyer. And when you text me and you call me to complain, that's fine, but it's my job to bill you. I'm of counsel at a firm. There's a support staff. Everybody's got to get paid. I can't just, and so I'm very fair and, again, transparent, because I like my clients to know when you call me, there is a billing that happens, because that is the job, and we get to do our job efficiently and effectively, but also we will be making money, and I will never take advantage, but I also can't allow myself to be taken advantage of. So I want to make sure that they understand, like, it is a back and forth relationship. It is.
Because it's like, it's probably also really blurred because you're such an empathetic person and such a passionate person. You're like, hey, I want to be there for you, but I can only be there for you so much because this is a job.
Well, I mean, there have been times that I have said to my clients, like, okay, I think, like, and they're like, no, but I'm paying you. And then I'm like, okay, so if you want to spend another whatever dollars to tell me this
probably actually
story,
more expensive than a therapist,
right?
So.
Like, get a therapist, and that's why, and that's in that way. And I will also say to them, we are trying to settle this because the only person who's going to win if your specific case goes to trial is me.
Mm-hmm.
It's me.
I love that you're so open about that too, because it is such a funny thing.
It is, like, and look, there are times when a trial is necessary. Mm-hmm. There's a real custody issue. Somebody's hiding assets. Somebody's not playing by the rules. Opposing counsel is not guiding their client in the sort of same way of what is what, because these are the things that we know. Assets accrued during the marriage in the absence of a prenuptial agreement, those are marital assets. Mm-hmm. Those get distributed equitably in New York State. That's what we know here. So if somebody's saying that this is not a marital asset when it is, and the only person who can make that determination is the judge, and it's a real sum of money or whatever, then it makes sense to do that. But much of the time when you're not dealing with big dollar amounts, or you're not dealing with a life or a crisis or a kid or abuse or something, it just becomes petty, and it becomes about anger. And then you're spending all this money on the divorce. Divorces will cost anywhere from $10,000 to $30,000 without a trial. So
something you mentioned on one of your own podcasts, which just stuck out to me, was, when people are like, okay, I'm ready to leave this marriage. It's no longer serving me. Don't make a rash decision by just jumping ship, right? And something you said is like, get your ducks in an order and figure out your finances as a couple, because one of the things that I'm starting to realize in these conversations is there are so many couples that do not have financial transparency together. And so when somebody is decided, usually it's the partner that has less financial control or awareness or, understands fully. So often what happens is it all goes, to hell in a hay basket, because they say, hey, I'm not in this anymore, but they don't actually realize what they're even going to be fighting over, or how much their lifestyle even is, until they say, I don't want this anymore, right?
It's and so bad. Yeah.
Like, what are some of the things that you advise clients, non-clients, before you're thinking of getting divorced, and or just if you're in a happy marriage and relationship, like, how should people be looking at finances? Because man, what a crazy cluster, especially as a couple.
So look, I think the name of your podcast is Prenup, right? Prenuptial agreements are a good idea. We say at our firm that prenuptial agreements are the closest thing you can have to divorce insurance. And this is true, but they have to be done correctly. And there's a lot that goes into a good prenuptial agreement. They have to be fair, and they can be done almost as a labor of love, meaning we're not getting divorced. We are here forever and ever. This is what we want till death do us part. But, it's just sort of like but if it goes belly up, and I think it's just a rational way to look at it. It doesn't have to be a big deal. It doesn't have to be an emotional heavy. It doesn't have to be anything beyond that.
Yeah, the stigmas around them are so insane to me. And I think that, the only people that really seem to get it are either people who've been divorced or individuals who have had parents that have gotten divorced. So I think, as you and I kind of chatted about, the entire idea of this podcast is to normalize them and say, hey, this is actually the most generous thing that you can do for your partner and your spouse, especially before you head into marriage, because it's a little bit of like clear eyes, full hearts, can't lose. But I guess another question I have for you then is, so for the couples that you see, going through divorces, et cetera, is there any time a difference between the ones that have prenups versus not having prenups when it comes to being able to have a cleaner, easier divorce?
Well, if the prenups are, if the prenups are good, the truth is divorce is hard no matter what. Let's try to make it a little less hard by knowing in advance how we're going to divide up what's there. That's how it makes it easier. But when emotions get in the way, I mean, someone will try to contest a prenup.
Yep.
And also people can choose to just waive the prenup if they want to. Sometimes, post-nups are also a good idea. If you don't have a prenup, you can then later make a post-nup. Also, if circumstances change, which can happen, and then it's sort of like the prenup isn't what it looked like before because the situation has changed. The financial situation has changed dramatically. And then, I mean, in the best case scenario, clear, easy prenup makes the dissolution of a marriage much simpler. But sometimes it's still complicated. It's just easier.
Yeah, I always say that a prenup isn't a fail-safe, but it's at least a heightened awareness of like what you're entering into.
Right. Well, that's true. And I think what you said before about transparency of finances is really important. It's incredible how many couples don't have that. And
Tell me more about that. Do you have a lot of clients that come in and are like, I have no idea what my finances are with my partner, and like,
I do.
What do I do?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it runs the gamut. It's men, it's women, it's same-sex couples. There's often that kind of power dynamic, or just no transparency, even if they both are making money. So I think it's worth a conversation to know what's what.
How do you really have your clients? Do you have clients usually that come to you when they've already decided to get divorced?
Yes,
or
because
do you have clients come to you and say, "Hey, I'm exploring this."
Actually, hold on.
What type of advice do you have?
Right.
Yeah. Because
I'm a romantic, so I tell people to work it out if they can. I mean, I'm not somebody who takes any decision lightly, and I do really believe that the couples that stay together and don't, there's a fine line between them, and we all have different reasons for being married or deciding to no longer be married. So zero judgment. You come to me for a free consult, and I do free consultations all the time. I will, if this is not fixable, it's not fixable. If it is fixable, try to fix it. Don't be short-sighted in your decision making, I think, for me. But and I also believe even during the process, if we're in the midst of doing this and you decide I want to give it another go, then go back and give it another.
How is that? Do you have clients that say, okay, I'm done, and then they start talking and then they start reflecting? And
I haven't had it happen, but it does happen. I have had people come to me just to fact find, and then they don't leave their marriages. So I have had those consultations. Yeah.
What are some of the most, to you, like for New York State, what are some of the most interesting, surprising things that someone should know about divorce, right? Like what are some
you
of the,
can know.
the rare
Back
things?
to the prenup, you can never have custody in your prenups.
Yes.
So we can't, unborn children can't be negotiated. So, which is, or children in general, they can't be in a prenup because the courts always decide in the best interest of the child. So I like that. I love that. That's one thing. I'm trying to think in New York State what's surprising. I think what's surprising is that people don't realize that if you have a separate bank account, but it's during the marriage, and marital funds or funds that were accumulated during the marriage go in that separate bank account, it doesn't mean that separate bank account is separate property. Yeah, it's still marital.
Yeah.
And so I think that's where you have to ask your lawyer or find out. Go beyond ChatGPT, because sometimes you'll get wrong information from the AI. AI is great in interpreting things that we know are factual, legitimate, but it's
so many friends recently say, "Oh, I don't need to get a prenup. All my stuff's in trusts and estates." And I'm like, "Okay, but what about your 401k? What about the money that you're making?
401k
yourself?
marital.
Like what about all these other things?" And it's going right over their head. They're like, "Oh, I didn't even think about that."
They are right. So inheritance or trust. So let's say you have an inheritance. or even an inheritance during your marriage. Let's say a parent dies who has a lot of money and leaves money to one person, to you in the marriage. As long as you keep that in a separate bank account and it never is commingled into an account, a joint account or an account, the monies are not shared ever, it stays separate property. And inheritance stays separate property. It's like a gift. But if it's commingled, it becomes marital. So you got to look out which account you put it in.
Also, probably, if you buy a house together, oh, you bought that house with that money, so now it's commingled, or you
right.
bought
So
this car.
Well, that becomes, so there are
crazy.
Yeah. So if separate property is used to buy a house, you do get a house credit.
Interesting.
Yeah. But you have to prove that it was separate property that was used to buy the house.
This is where these forensic,
accountants come in and they charge a lot of money too. I mean, that's the thing that people, when you're so angry, you're like, I'm going to take her for everything she's worth. I'm going to take him for everything he's worth. And it's like, is he worth that much, A? And B,
probably not.
Right, probably not. Like, there's a lot of smoke and mirrors. And B, is it really, like, if you are fighting over $100,000, which is a lot of money, but you're spending $97,000, is it worth the pain to get the $3,000? You have to look at what's the cost analysis here, and what's your time worth and your emotional life worth. And that's why I say there's compromise there has to be compromise so that you don't shoot yourself in the foot just because you were angry.
Yeah. And I don't think I just don't think no one's going to ever be like, oh, that was a fair divorce.
And also nobody is 100% in the right and nobody is 100% in the wrong, even in the case of infidelity. I know infidelity is like the thing that everyone's always like, oh my God, he cheated, she cheated, whatever. Yeah, that sucks and it's not fun. But
I feel like it's never the reason though, really. Right?
Correct.
It's always
There's always
the symptom.
something. And it's not an okay symptom if you're not interested in that kind of life. I get it. But that doesn't make someone a murderer. That makes them an asshole. That makes them unfaithful. And that may make it not, livable for you long term, depending on who you are and how the marriage can be fixed or not. But this idea somehow that the retribution is somehow going to match what you deem as the crime and the crime. It's just a lot of, it's emotion. Again, I can say that word over and over again, but that's what it becomes about instead of sort of rational thinking. And I think that's one of our jobs as divorce lawyers is to sort of say, unless you're someone who stokes the fire, that's not how I am, but I'm sure many are. But I think that causes problems.
So I guess, you have children, you have a few children yourselves.
Yeah.
You want them to get prenups or no?
Yeah. So my adult kids.
You had the discussion with them, and are any of them married?
So my kids are not married. My kids are 26 and 25. And
they're babies.
Yeah, they're adults, but they're babies. They're forever my babies. And I think that's a decision that they get to make. But yeah, I would tell them to have really good ones. And I think a good one can just be fair. I don't think it's about being punitive, or it's fair. So, and the times change, and economic sort of economic situations change, your status. This word I'm looking for is economic status changes. I'm 55, and at 55, the words, they disappear. They're right there, and then they're like,
also.
Bye-bye. Yeah, then they're just gone, and I'm like, oh, yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I think will encourage them, but I can't make the decision for them.
Do you have a lot of clients that come in after they've gotten divorced and they're going to go get remarried and they're like, hey, I need a prenup this time around? Or,
yeah, I think people the second time around often want prenuptial agreements.
And how do you suggest sometimes? So I know the biggest thing that I've been getting the past year is how so many people I talk to are like, yeah, of course I'll get a prenup. And then some of these people get engaged and I'm like, oh, have you gotten your prenup yet? Have you talked to your partner? They're like, yeah, not yet.
It's a tough, because
how do you suggest that people kind of approach it? Are there,
you have to just be
probably
direct.
Not one way, but
it's kind of like the same thing. It's hard to make a will because you start to think about death, and that's creepy, or life insurance. It's all creepy, but you do it anyway. So you have to kind of think of it like that, look, this isn't what we're going to do, and we're not getting divorced, and we're going to be married forever, and that's the plan. But it doesn't hurt to have a prenuptial agreement. When it's done right, it shouldn't be painful. So
do you ever have people that come in and start doing a prenuptial agreement and then they're like, whoa, we are so not on the same page for our future? And then
that can happen, and that's important to address before you end up getting married. And hopefully it's something that can be resolved.
Yeah. But if it can't, also to that point, right? It's like if you can't agree on this stuff before you're getting married and before you might have kids and all these other pieces of the puzzle, it's like, okay, well,
Sometimes you hear about a divorce or you're dealing with a divorce where it was just a mismatch of expectations from early on. And maybe that can sort of be diminished with those kind of uncomfortable conversations before, potentially uncomfortable conversations before.
do you think there's also something to be said? I know you have spent many years in the entertainment industry and you've kind of seen it probably evolve in a much closer light than many in terms of just access to media portrayals of what like life should be versus what it really is versus, okay,
It
all
is
these.
so silly. I mean, I feel very lucky that I've had kind of, I mean, there's very little I haven't seen either in my own life or in people I know in their lives. I mean, everyone is full of shit. And
Yeah.
I don't even mean that in a bad way. I think it's protective. And I think that we didn't anticipate social media to be what it is. We didn't anticipate that there would be this place where people would just put themselves shiny and glossy without the honesty of what was going on behind it. All of a sudden, relationships play out online. It's weird. I don't know. It's a strange, it's really, really odd. I think there's a place for it, and I love interacting, engaging with people online. I do it. I try to be as open and honest as I can be. And whatever I don't talk about, it's because I feel like that's a healthy boundary and it's a choice to only share what I'm really comfortable sharing.
Yeah.
If I'm not, then I'm not going to share any of it because I want to always be direct.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, people put on an air of perfection and that's infuriating. But then on the flip side, we project so much onto other people that even when they don't put up an air of perfection, we give them that because it looks like they have something we want because of what we're looking at, and they haven't told us we want it, but we've decided we want it. So there's a lot of psychology I'm not sure we fully understand yet. But I will say, I am not a fan, and really this is out of my own experience at this point in my life. I don't love the complaining about sort of like a dissolution of a marriage or the really sort of personal stuff, not because we have to keep secrets. No. But I think when there are other people involved, like children, the internet is there forever. So be careful what you say in a heated moment. And also, no one, like, we're not unique. None of us are unique. We're all going to have the same problems and issues, different characters and different specifics, but the core issues are pretty much what they are. So, like, I don't know what anybody thinks they're going to accomplish by sort of trashing somebody else or, making it really ugly. It doesn't, I don't know how that helps.
Karma eventually, if something's really that bad, like that person will get what they're getting. You don't need to be the one to instill it on them. As long as your kids are like safe and protected and you're happy and safe and protected. There was someone who I just recently interviewed, and what I loved about what he said was, he may have in his mind or his lawyer's mind taken a loss, but he realized, he was like, I put my kids first in every decision I made in the divorce.
Correct. And that is, by the way, I should have said this at the outset and you did, so maybe you need to be a lawyer. I think you can't go wrong if at every moment you're thinking, before I say X, Y, and Z, how is it going to impact my kids? How's it going to impact them today? How's it going to impact them in a year? How's it going to impact them in 5 years? When somebody says, I remember on TikTok when your dad was super viral during the divorce. Like, I don't know that's, but do it if you want to. I'm not here to judge, but it's a very,
Yeah.
It's not,
Oh, I know.
that's just.
Yeah. Well, I guess, the other thing for me is, which I went down a rabbit hole this past year of like reading Esther Perel and looking into the psychology of all of this, because I do think that there's something to be said about also how we've vilified divorce in the past few years. And there is this like, also, something you mentioned earlier, like divorce isn't always the only option when things are complicated. Like there's separations, there's legal separations,
Correct.
There's a variety.
Those are also very different things. You're not legally separate in the state of New York. You are totally married unless there is a legal document or a court order to the contrary for separation or divorce. So
can you
even
tell
if you're
me
living
more about that? Because I know that there's some people like who I've talked to recently who said, divorce feels like the rash decision and our kids are of a certain age, but like, I just I can't deal with it all right now, but I know like we shouldn't be in the same household. Like maybe there's
So in
another
New
way
York
to
State,
attack
yeah,
this.
a couple things. In New York State, you're wholly married unless there is a legal separation or filing for separation, like a separation agreement or a filing.
Okay.
That's otherwise you're not separated. It doesn't matter if you live one place and your partner lives another, you are married in the eyes of the law. So that means all the assets are marital. So it's retirement accounts that are growing, they're going to continue to grow because it's still considered a marriage that's ongoing until there's a legal document or a legal filing. So that's it's more of an economic thing at the outset. And also everyone has equal rights to the kids and all of that because there's nothing.
There's no custody agreement right now. Yeah.
Right, nothing. So that's one real change. You could have a legal separation or a divorce proceeding. You could either file for separation or file for divorce. Filing for separation is sort of like baby steps toward divorce. I mean, you could stop it at any time, but when you do file for divorce, it does stop the financial timeline. So that's sort of the date. Same with the legal separation agreement.
It's so interesting also how many different routes there are that you could take when you're kind of navigating this. It's probably so, I've never been divorced.
And no rules. And no rules. Like you get to pick and choose how you want to live your life. Like that's the other thing.
Yeah. So another question for you you're a successful entrepreneur. You have an incredible business with these cool sunglasses and I don't know.
They're reading glasses.
They're reading glasses. They're awesome. They're so smart. I've been laughing at I need to get my mom some. She's going to love them. But because she's always like pulling them out.
Of course, we lose our readers everywhere.
So when you have, when you start a business, especially before marriage, right? I think one of the things that's been coming up a lot in the prenup conversation these days is majority of my network is either founders or, people who are early stage startup co-founders, people who are, really in the trenches early with carry, with equity and or ownership of a full business. Like a lot of people, how would you recommend for those people to kind of approach the prenuptial situation, since it might be like a really early company today, but in 5 to 10 years, when hopefully all these companies do really successful and wonderful, it's like, how do you protect yourself, but also make sure that if your partner is along for the ride, like they are valued as well.
Right. I think it depends on who you are and how much goodwill you have. And I don't look at the idea of a prenup as an opportunity to screw anybody. So I think you really look at what the business is and who is involved and who participated and contributed and what kind of partner they have been and you anticipate that they'll be. That's how I see it. If you're commingling, you're commingling. If you're not, you're not. But yeah, because
there was something recently, a friend mentioned that their partner had agreed to, if they they don't have kids yet, but if they were to one day have children and one of the partners were to quit their jobs to stay home and take care of the children, they were worried, okay, I'm going to be out of the workforce for a few years. I might want to get back into it. Like, what does that look like for me? And how do we navigate that in a prenup? And someone had suggested that the other partner contributes to a 401k for that person. Someone had suggested.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Like, I mean, I would love to know, like, if there's any suggestions that you have that might be like worth having a conversation around. It doesn't have to be like, the one reason thing, but just a few things.
I think people can get creative.
About.
I think people can get creative, and that's where you can determine that the 401ks are then marital property versus kept as separate property. Maybe there are clauses that if one stops working to rear the kids or whatever it is, that some of the assets that we've determined we're going to stay separate are now not going to be separate anymore. I mean, there are ways you could get creative in ensuring that partner's decision doesn't come at a deficit or doesn't come with them having a greater risk down the road if something goes bad.
There was a few people have been talking about this book, Fair Play, which, I don't know if you've heard about it, but it's basically how women, especially women that work in the workforce and their husbands are working as well. And this is, of course, for heterosexual relationships, as the book's focused on, where the woman usually ends up taking on the brunt of the family work as well as the career. And so there's kind of this like disproportionate value, right, contributed. And I'm so curious as to like, have you seen that a lot in your divorces of,
I mean, what I do see, and I will represent men and I will represent women, I will represent non-binary people. It's really, everybody has a story to tell and everybody should have equal. And that word fair is just awful, but good representation.
Things fair in divorce.
Right. But we, do live in a country that is rather patriarchal still. And when you are the mom of the home, and certainly in a heterosexual marriage, you're the mom of the home, and it doesn't matter whether you work, you're always mom. I mean, I used to say that my whole life was either working or my kids and my family. I would never go on girls' trips or girls' nights or do any of that because I felt like my indulgence was working, even though I needed to work. Like it just felt that because my job was really to be in the house, so I wasn't home, which is convoluted, and men are not taught to think that way.
I get where you probably like thought that, but I'm also like, oh my gosh, girl, you should have gone on that trip.
Yeah, no. And the kids like always loved their dad. Their dad is an incredible dad, a great father.
Yeah.
But the mom, we end up, we just do
sacrificing in ways you didn't even realize you're sacrificing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you realize maybe later, and I don't regret any of that. Like, I live for my kids. That's just how I'm wired. And I always wanted to be a mom. Like, that was so.
It's also amazing that your son is now a lawyer as well. He's following in your footsteps.
Oh, he's a whole other kind of, he's like a constitutional law expert. He's really good friends with Vanessa too. Vanessa and my son are better friends than me.
Constitutional law.
It's really funny. Oh yeah, no, he's a clerk for a for a judge.
That's amazing.
On the 11th Circuit. Yeah. Oh no, he's great. He's super smart and delicious, and I love him like crazy, and I'm very proud of him. But he would say that he's like a lawyer, and then he would call me a lawyer in quotes, and I'm like, dude, like I'm a lawyer too.
He's like, Mom, you're also my mom, so like I can't.
Yeah, it doesn't count.
My mom first.
No, he has way surpassed me on every level, and I'll be like, do you want to look over this case I'm doing? And he's like, no, ethically I can't. And I'm like, okay, I gotta go. Bye, son. Like, he's really funny. He's the best. And my daughter is a social media manager for Broadway shows, and she's just the light of my life. Those two kids are
so cool.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you had I was laughing at your TikTok or your Insta where you were singing Annie. You have the most beautiful voice.
Thank you very much.
How do we tie this into some awesome legal thing, right?
No, we can't.
The singing, the operatic lawyer. Like,
can't happen. No, that dream had to die. It's okay. It's a good party trick.
It's okay.
It's just a party trick at this point, but it's fine. I like it. My daughter's a really good singer. She went to school for vocal performance at Michigan at the School of Music, Theater, and Dance, and she's amazing, but she doesn't do it. So it's a party trick. It could be a karaoke night. The two of us will hit it. It's amazing. Everyone's like, oh my God, you could sing. I'm like, yeah, what does it get me? Nothing. But thanks.
I mean, it gets my admiration.
Yeah, there we go. It gets a few people who are like, oh my God, you could sing? I didn't know you could do it all. And I'm like, great.
Okay. I can tell your son, I'm a lawyer, I'm a singer, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a founder.
Yeah, the kids don't care. No kids care. They do not care at all. No, they care to have their dinner on the table. Yeah.
A very good one, probably.
Yeah, good enough. It's fine.
I love it. I love it. Well, with Vanessa in your ear, you're probably like, oh, great. Do these certain things.
Vegetables. Always add this.
This is what's focused.
This
vegetables. Is always freaking vegetables. Do not eat another protein bar.
Kind of how I have it in
my ear. That's literally how I have it in my ear. I'm like going to grab one. I'm like, nope.
She just says no protein bars. She's anti the protein bar.
I could literally picture her if you were like shopping, just smacking it out of your hand.
She does not believe in it.
No. Well, I guess my, final few questions for you are if, say, okay, right, I'm 34. I'm not married yet, but one day would love to get married.
Yep.
How do you think I would be a good way to approach, with my partner eventually, having the discussion about a prenup and like, what is the best delivery?
Yeah, I think for someone like you who's establishing a career, who has had a career, who probably has retirement accounts from other jobs you've had, you would say, look, we're both coming into this marriage with a history, with a financial history, with a life of history, and just think it would be a good idea to talk at the beginning about what happens, God forbid, in the event that things don't work out. They're going to work out. But if you look at Sally, Sue, John, Kevin, and whomever else, sometimes they don't. And I would rather we never have to fight. So I think that's how you approach it, in a really loving, tender kind of way. And then you guys get to have them drafted the way you want. So it's up to you how sort of hardline and...
I really like what you just said, which is, so then we never have to fight. because I think that goes back so much for me with my parents fighting for years. And it's like, man, you know, if we're going to have to end this, which hopefully I never have to do, like the last thing you want to do is be fighting with the person that you spent so many years loving.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. And the fight's going to happen. So the idea is to make it, you know, if the marriage is going to
Less
end, it's
insane.
not going to be pretty, right? So just try
Slightly
to
less
lessen the
insane.
pain if you can. Yeah. Thank you for
And
having me on.
No,
Yeah.
I'm
Oh,
so
what else?
happy.
What
I just
else
wanted to
is-
say, you know,
Yeah.
if anyone wants to, I know you have you do
Yes.
free consults.
I do.
So I'm going to send them your way.
Please do.
I
Yeah,
love that
Jenny
you
at
do that.
lawjaw.com. And
Okay,
yeah, I'm happy to help.
perfect. Amazing. And you're barred in the state of New York.
I'm in New York. Yep.
Okay,
I'm a New York
great.
lawyer.
I love it.
Yep.
Well, Jenny, thank you so much for today. This was one of my favorite conversations recently, and
Oh,
I
yay.
myself learned so much, and I can't wait to see you and Vanessa soon in real life.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on again. Thanks.